Hello and welcome to my guide to the Katars. In my last video I showed you the strengths and weaknesses of the weapon, and as you could see, the Katars are somewhat underpowered at the moment and it is really hard to perform well when using them. The main reasons for this are the extremely short attack range, the low damage when hitting enemies from the front, and most importantly the fact that you don't interrupt attacking enemies with regular attacks. Nonetheless, I have found a way to use them quite effectively now, and I want to share the most important tips with you. Also, make sure to check out my ambusher guide if you want tips on playing this subclass in general, or my beginner's guide if you are a new player that came with the Game Pass release. I will link both videos in the description. But now let's look at the damage values of the Katars first. As you can see, the Katars deal the same amount of damage to every class because the weapon type of the Katars is cut. The next important thing to note here is that the damage is really low overall, so you have to focus on backstabbing to get the 50% bonus damage. Also, you have to play in a way which lets you utilize the insane attack speed as much as possible in order to make up for the low damage. And how you can do that will be shown in the second tip. What's also important about the damage values is that your special attack consists of 2 hits, and what's also quite interesting is that you can kill every class with 3 light stabs when backstabbing, as long as you're not hitting a knight that was overhealed by the special ability Warhorn. And considering the speed of your attacks, you can deal a really good amount of damage in a short time frame when backstabbing. And you might have noticed that I wrote horizontal in quotes, and this is the case because the Katars don't have a regular horizontal attack. So whenever you use your input for your horizontal attack, you will actually perform a stab, but a weaker version of the actual stab that you have. Now let's get to the first and one of the most important tips. Use your special attack as primary source of damage. The Katars have one of the best special attacks in-game. They are extremely fast, you deal a good amount of damage, and you also get your stamina back when you hit your enemies. And yes, you would sometimes deal more damage in the same time frame when relying on regular stabs, for example, but your enemies must be really distracted so you have enough time to actually get the damage through. And also, considering the range of the Katars and the movement of you and your enemies, it's quite hard to get multiple stabs in sometimes. So overall, it's just way more reliable to use your special attack to deal damage. And what also makes your special attack better than your regular attacks is that your special attack can interrupt your enemies. So by using your special attacks as primary source of damage, you're also minimizing the biggest weakness of the Katars. And another strength of your special attack is that your second hit can go through blocks. So if you're close enough to your enemy, you can always deal a little bit of damage, since your special attack cannot be countered. But keep in mind that the damage of the second hit, which goes through the block, is at least reduced by 50%. And one more thing which makes the special attack even better is that special attack kills charge your special ability, the bandage kit. So it's a very good idea to last hit your enemies with your special attack. But overall, when you use your special attack as your primary source of damage, you have to keep the cooldown in mind. And the cooldown is roughly as long as it takes for you to stab 2 times. So whenever you've used your special attack, you can stab 2 times and then it is guaranteed that you can use your special attack again. Now let's get to the second tip. Focus on distracted enemies and avoid attention. If you want to use the Katars as effectively as possible, you have to focus on flanking and also backstabbing. So generally you want to join ongoing fights instead of starting them yourself and focus on distracted enemies. By focusing on this, it will be exponentially easier for you to utilize your insane attack speed, because it is way harder for an enemy to block your attacks if you're behind him or to the side of him. And whenever you notice that the enemy's attention is on you, it can be a good idea to leave the fight for a short while and then rejoin it when the attention on you is gone. So it's definitely a good idea to stay on the move when using the Katars and go in and out of fights. And I really can't emphasize enough how important this tip actually is. Once I started focusing on this, it became so much easier to perform well with the Katars. Now let's get to the third tip. Don't rely on your headbutt to stop combos. Since you're holding your Katars in both of your hands, you will perform a headbutt when using your input for your jab. The problem with the headbutt is that it's way slower than a regular jab, and this makes it an unreliable way to stop an enemy from using a combo. And in the following comparison, you will see how slow the headbutt actually is compared to a regular jab. And in most cases the regular jab is just fast enough to stop an enemy from using a combo, so it is pretty clear that the headbutt should not be used in this case. Now let's get to tip number 4. Your stab deals more damage than your slash. As I've already mentioned, your Katars don't have a real horizontal slash. So whenever you use your input for your horizontal attack, you will actually stab. But the problem is that this attack will deal less damage than your actual stab. So unless you are countering an enemy's horizontal slash or you are trying to feint, you should always use your stab instead of your slash input. Otherwise, you will just deal less damage for no reason. Now let's get to the next tip. Avoid fighting multiple enemies alone. Since the attack range of the Katars is extremely short and your regular attacks don't interrupt attacking enemies, it is just extremely hard to do well in 1vx situations. So even if you do everything right when fighting multiple enemies alone, you will probably still lose the fight. So try to avoid these types of situations at all costs. And now let's get to the last tip, don't use your sprint attack. The Katar sprint attack is just terrible damage wise and is a complete waste of time. It deals only 30 damage and just for comparison, as you've already seen, your regular light stab already deals 40 damage. And your stab is also faster than your sprint attack. And although your sprint attack looks kinda cool, you should really not use it. And if it's possible for you, you should even rebind your sprint attack. Since the sprint attack and the special attack are bound to the same key by default, you cannot use a special attack after you've been running for a while, unless you jump or you stop for a split second. But if you rebind your special or your sprint attack to another key, then you can also use your special attack even after you've been running for a while. So if it's possible for you, then definitely rebind your sprint or your special attack, so you can always use your special attack even after you've been running for a while instead of your sprint attack. I'm exclusively playing on PC, but as far as I know there is no possibility yet for console players to rebind their attacks to different buttons. Yeah, and overall this is really a shame in my opinion and should be implemented as soon as possible by the developers. But if you're on PC and it's possible for you to rebind, then you should definitely do so with your sprint or your special attack. So overall, when running up to an enemy, you should always use your regular stab or your special attack instead of your sprint attack, because the damage of your sprint attack is just way too low. Alright, that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful for you. If yes, leave a like and also consider subscribing to my channel. It would really help me out. And as always, see you on the battlefield.